Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are breaking down a really crucial business tool, something every leader absolutely needs to get a handle on: stakeholder mapping.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a pretty simple question. If you start a business, who do you actually have to listen to? I mean, is it just your customers, your investors? Well, as you can probably guess, it's a little more complicated than that.
The short answer is your stakeholders. And look, that's kind of a broad term, but it's basically anyone who has a stake in whether you succeed or fail. We're talking everyone from the employees who show up every day to the customers buying your stuff and even the government agencies that keep an eye on you.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, the stakeholder puzzle. Then, mapping your world. After that, we'll dive into the 4 quadrants, look at the strategic payoff, and finally, touch on what's beyond the grid.
Okay, Section 1, the stakeholder puzzle. And the subtitle says it all, really. When everyone wants something different. This is the core challenge, right? You just can't make everyone happy all at once, because different groups want totally different and often competing things.
Yeah, think about this classic dilemma. Your investors, they want higher profits. That usually means keeping costs, like salaries, as low as you can. But what about your employees? Well, they want higher wages for all their hard work. You literally can't maximize both of those things at the same time. And that is the stakeholder puzzle in a nutshell. It's a constant, tricky balancing act.
So how do you deal with that chaos? Well, this brings us to Section 2, mapping your world. This is all about bringing some order to that chaos, because instead of just reacting to whoever's shouting the loudest, you can actually get ahead of it and make sense of all those competing demands.
So what is stakeholder mapping? Really, well, it's just the process of figuring out who really matters and how to manage what they expect from you. It's all about turning that messy, chaotic list of people into a clear, visual guide that you can actually use to make decisions.
And honestly, it's not as complicated as you might think. It's a pretty straightforward process that turns that big, complex problem into a plan you can actually follow. It's just 5 steps. First, you identify everyone involved. Second, you figure out their power and interest. Third, you plot them on a grid. Fourth, you develop a strategy for each group. And fifth, you implement it and, keep an eye on things. Okay, Section 3, the 4 quadrants. And this is really the heart of the whole thing. We're going to be using a simple but incredibly powerful tool called the power/interest grid. So here's what it looks like. It's just a simple grid, right? And we're going to plot every single one of our stakeholders on this thing based on 2 key factors. On one axis, you've got power. How much can they actually influence your business? And on the other, you've got interest. How much do they actually care about what you're doing? Okay, let's start in that top right corner. This is your Manage Closely group. These are the people with high power and high interest. These are your key players. So if you're running that coffee shop, this is your loyal daily customers. They have the power to just stop coming, and they're super interested in the quality of your coffee. The strategy? You got to manage them closely and keep them involved in what you're doing. Now, let's move over to the top left. This is the Keep Satisfied box. These folks have high power but pretty low day-to-day interest. The perfect example is the health inspector or the local government. You don't talk to them every day, but wow, they have the power to shut you down. So the goal here isn't to be their best friend. It's just to make sure you meet all their requirements so they stay happy. And then we drop down to the bottom right. This is your Keep Informed group. They have low power, but they are highly interested. Think about your employees. Sure, one single barista probably can't change company policy, but as a group, they are super invested. The key here is to keep them in the loop. It builds goodwill, it's great for morale, and honestly, you can get some fantastic ideas from them.
And finally, that brings us to the bottom left corner. Monitor. Low power, low interest. This could be, say, the general public who don't buy your coffee. You don't need to put a lot of effort here. You just keep an eye on them just in case something changes and they suddenly become more powerful or interested.
All right, Section 4, the strategic payoff. So you might be thinking, why go through all this trouble? Why do all this mapping and plotting? Well, because this isn't just some academic exercise. Getting this right has huge, real-world benefits for your business. It's non-negotiable.
And here's the really crucial thing to understand. The goal here is not to make every single person happy. It's impossible. The real goal is to be smart and strategic about where you focus your limited time, energy, and money so you put them where they'll have the biggest impact.
Okay, so what are the benefits? Benefit number 1, you prevent conflict. Simple as that. When you know what people want ahead of time, you can spot potential disagreements and deal with them before they blow up into something much bigger.
Benefit number 2, it protects your reputation. I mean, when you actually address the concerns of your most important groups, you build trust. And that trust is what creates a strong, positive brand.
And benefit number 3, you just make better decisions. When you know exactly who to talk to before you make a big move, those folks in the Manage Closely box, you massively reduce the risk of making a really costly mistake.
Okay, last section here, beyond the grid. Because look, that power/interest grid we just walked through, it's the most common tool and it's awesome. But it's worth knowing that it's not the only tool in the kit.
Yeah, for really complex situations, you might use other models. For instance, some of them add another factor like urgency. Others can even help you visualize the relationships between your stakeholders so you can see who's influencing who. But no matter the tool, the core idea is always the same. Bring clarity to the chaos.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Stakeholder mapping is not just some homework assignment you do once. It's a living, breathing strategy that is absolutely vital for survival and success. Understanding who matters and why, that's how you navigate the complexities that ultimately decide if your business sinks or swims.
So I'll leave you with one final question to chew on. If you ignore your most powerful stakeholders, that Manage Closely group, what's the very first thing to break? Is it your finances, your reputation, maybe your own team? Something to really think about.